Greetings, fellow humans. This is another video on writing advice. And in this video, we're going to talk about, you know, your antagonists, your villains, or your in between sort of quasi antagonist that's on his way or on her way to be redeemed, right? So, this video will be about villains, antagonists, and why not all of them have to be redeemed. Actually, that I would say that a lot of these, let's call them bad guys or anti-heroes or whatever, they may have a good heart, they may have good intentions, but along the way they have run into and done some heinous stuff. And this video is about, or I should say, this is about my stance against redemption. Not all bad guys have to be redeemed. I would say that pretty much, a majority of them should never be redeemed, right? And what do I mean by redemption? Because we have to make a distinction. So, in my view, this bad, let's call it bad or harmful redemption, is when this, let's call him an antagonist, he has done some bad things, but now he has run into a group of friends, and slowly but surely, this person is corrected. This person is infected by the camaraderie and the goodness of this group, and this antagonist slowly turns to the light, right? Even though, and this person is forgiven, even though this person may have committed some pretty horrible crimes and so on, right? And this is just my preference, both as a reader and as a writer. I do not entertain this notion that bad people should be redeemed. Of course, there are exceptions. If the crime is, let's call it, if the crime is not an atrocity or something so uh, uh, horrifying, right? If the crime is not tremendous in its range and evilness, if you would, then yeah, that person should be redeemed, of course. But if the antagonist at the time has committed whatever, right? It doesn't really matter. If it's horrific enough, I don't think that this person should be redeemed, right? And furthermore, um, it is my belief that if a person is evil and does evil things, then that person should be straightforward about it. You should be, straightforward. You know, that person should not seek redemption, should not seek companionship. That person should accept his or her nature without apology and just be what he or she is, right? And of course, there are exceptions and, subcategories and what have you. I don't believe in redemption. Um, I've published 2 books, In my big book, which you can buy on Amazon, um, I specifically wrote the protagonist as someone who does not want to be redeemed, as a sort of antithesis to this redemption thing that's been going along, Zuko and Avatar and what have you. A lot of examples, right? Now, just because the person accepts the evil nature, that does not mean that this person is not complex, sophisticated, and what have you. They pretty much, if you want to be a good writer, you have to write sophisticated, complex characters, right? And you can do that with malevolent, hostile characters that are, let's call them venomous, right? They might have a good side, but overall they are venomous. They are filled with malice. They might have positive aspects of their personality, but overall the evil, the darkness, it is the majority of their personality. The darkness is their essence, and I don't believe that such characters should be redeemed. You know, and this is why I never liked, let's call them antagonists. This is why I never liked antagonists like what's his name? Jesus, I forgot his name. Thanos. This is why I never liked Thanos, because he does some pretty horrific stuff that is worthy of a dictator, a genocidal maniac, whatever, an evildoer, right? Now, this is why I don't like this character, is because he justifies his evil doings with, well, with a compromise. You see, I'm doing this for the greater good, for the good of the majority, even though I am basically deleting half of the universe's life. I'm doing this not out of cruelty. I'm doing this because it must be done, or life itself would cease to be, right? And you think, well, that's kind of good, but it's also kind of bad. The moral ambiguity, the moral relativism, etc. You see, and I never liked, uh, you know, um these antagonists who justify their actions with the greater good. I'm doing this for the greater good, or I'm doing this because my family or my children, or because I was traumatized. I love. I think it adds even more complexity and sophistication. Well, not sophistication, but another layer to this character. And what I mean by that, the character that accepts his or her nature that is evil and seeks no apology, seeks no redemption, seeks no exemption, right? And I like these antagonists who don't justify their horrible, awful actions with, well, you see, my grandma's in the hospital. You know, uh, I was the underdog. I was bullied. It's for the greater good of my household, or for the city, or what have you. You can't justify awful crimes with good intentions, or you can't justify awful acts with, well, I donate to charities. You know, you can't do that. In my opinion, that's just my opinion as a writer and um, as a reader. That's why I don't like Thanos, right? Some people cannot be redeemed, and they should not be redeemed, and they should not seek to be redeemed. Okay? So this mainly depends mainly depends on the type of character you're trying to write. Okay? Because we've all seen and read these stories about this antagonist that is redeemed or half redeemed, whatever, and that's fine. But it has been done to death. So this video serves as a sort of advice for aspiring writers, right? You got to change it up. You got to do something different. And justifying, atrocities with the greater good or, the preservation of life, I mean, it just doesn't uh, work with me, right? And this is just my personal preference. I have, I basically have, the morality of, black and white, the Rorschach code, if you would. You know, I operate under that code. So in my mind, if you do awful things, even though dot dot dot, that still doesn't. Uh, it still does not justify what you have done, even though it was done for an honorable reason, right? A crime's a crime, and you're gonna have to face the consequences and pay the price for your actions. You see, redemption never really worked out for me. It never really vibed with me, right? My book, when I wrote my book, um, I specifically wrote this protagonist and as someone who is unapologetically evil, right? And this person does not seek to be forgiven. This person does not seek to be heard. This person does not want to be, you know, uh, heard out. This person just does horrible things for the fun of it, and he confesses this, straightforward. He is not, oh, I'm doing this because of this and this. He just does these horrible things because he likes it, because he is good at it, and it's fun for him to do evil things, right? So that's the kind of an antagonist protagonist that I wrote, right? One that does not seek redemption. And this topic came to me uh, because, listen, we've always heard this notion or theory that no human being ever just woke up with the intention to do harm. We've constantly been told that no human being ever just woke up in the morning with the intention to cause evil and pain and suffering, just for the fun of it. We, that's what we are told, and I don't agree with that. I would say that there are a lot of real people out here in the real world that are having a glee time causing harm and suffering on others, and they love it when they get away with it, right? So I try to be a bit more realistic with my writing, and maybe this video will help you if you are an aspiring writer, right? Uh, re- the problem with redemption is that redemption sort of lessens the blow and the ramifications of the awful acts that have been committed. If you forgive somebody in one way or another for these atrocities, these crimes, then it seems to me that the crime itself is lessened somehow. Like it's not that important anymore. Like its vile intention is not that impactful, which it is, right? Every crime, every horrific thing is important, and those who commit these transgressions, should face the consequences, and they should not be forgiven, and they should not be redeemed. Especially those like my protagonists who claim that they uh, just do it for the fun of it, right? So yeah, I wrote a protagonist who is unapologetically evil for the sake of evil, and in the book, as you read along, uh, it is revealed that he uh, becomes more and more seduced with the prospect of committing, committing and imparting suffering and pain on others, on innocence also, right? And he does so, without conscience, without guilt, without feeling anything but joy, right? And I think this is a bit more realistic, realistic writing, right? Because in real life there are people who love doing evil, right? So redemption should not be applied so easily, right? There has to be a thorough analysis of the crimes and how they were committed and how the criminal feels about them, right? And so on. But usually, I don't agree with redemption under any circumstances because I think it lessens the blow, the impact of the atrocities, whatever they may be, right? So this was a little video on, writing advice. This is what I do. Redemption. Redemption is fickle. It must be applied sparingly. That's what I'm saying, right? And that is why I do not appreciate characters such as such as Thanos and what have you, that they do it for the seemingly for the greater good, right? They have good intentions. These atrocities uh, are riding piggyback on good intentions. And as we all know, the cliche, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. Just because something seems like it has a positive impact doesn't mean that this impact is positive on everybody or in equal measure, right? Something that is good for a few might be bad for others, and so on, right? Because not all people are the same, right? And they react differently depending on circumstances and conditions, and so on, right? So this was the video. I hope it was helpful. You know, keep on writing, keep on reading, and see ya.